Welcome to the basement.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Basement Boys podcast. I am Chris Gray. That is Eric Mincer. That is Devin Mitchell. Hope I got that pointing right.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll edit it in post.
I'll respond to any name. You can call me Devin. You can call me Eric.
You've made that joke already.
I mean,
What about Natalie? Would you respond to Natalie? Because she's chilling with us today.
Oh my God, I
You
forgot
call
to
me-
introduce Natalie. I'm the worst person.
Nat.
She's the lifeblood of this show.
Dev, if you have a boy, you have to name him Giovanni so you could have Nat Geo.
Yo, if Nat Geo is still a thing, then yeah, we might strongly.
What do you
I
mean?
would
It's
strongly
on
consider
Disney
that.
Plus.
Yeah, but I'm saying if it's still a thing by the time like baby number 2 rolls around.
Yo, if it's on Disney
Crap.
Plus, Dev, it's out here. It's going to be around
It's in for-
forever.
It's gonna outlive all of us.
Yo, you know what the scary
Love
thing is though? Like if I have a boy and do name him Giovanni, and that guy Nat Geo, they gotta be Nelly, you gotta be a smart baby then. So I'm naming you after smart publication channels.
Dude, she keeps hitting the mic every time you talk about her. She's just like, why are you airing out my business, Dad?
Not today. I don't want them to know.
All right, Eric, why don't you give us a little recap of events for today?
Today, we're gonna do a recap of the March Madness, a little roundup just to ease into the Final Four, which at the time of this recording, we know 2 of the teams. When this is released, we'll know all 4. We got to talk a little bit about the women's controversy going on with the UConn Baylor game. We're going to dive into the NBA post-trade deadline NBA buyout situation. Are the Nets the super team that just going to take over the world? Probably. We got UFC 260 to recap, and then we're going to dive on in and do a Major League Baseball season predictions. All right, boys, let's do some basketball news.
Triple-double in his whole career. 10 seconds left. He hits a three.
All right, yeah. So in the Sweet 16, we saw let's just say the better teams just came out and were the better teams. Baylor beat Villanova convincingly. Gonzaga came out and beat Creighton by a lot. USC kind of kicked Oregon. Michigan State won by almost 20 over Florida State, and again, a bad game. Houston beat Syracuse, held Syracuse to only 46 points. For me, though, and I think you guys would agree, the game of the weekend so far was the UCLA-Alabama overtime thriller.
That was nuts.
Alabama hit the,
See-
well behind the three-point line with 4 seconds left, hits the big three to send it to overtime. Then they stopped scoring. They just didn't do anything in overtime, but that was a very fun game to watch.
See, that was the problem with that game for me. It was great. And then just it goes to overtime. You're like, this game has been so good so far. This overtime is about to be fantastic. And then Bama was just like, okay, well, we only play in regulation. They just fell apart from the second
But-
the ball started. They just came out and started chucking up as many threes as they could.
They had so many at the end of that game in regulation. They had so many chances to win it, and they just kept missing free throws. They went 11 for 24, under 50% from free throws. Like, you can't win a game, you can't win a championship if you can't knock down the free throws, and that had to have just like sucked up all their energy and demoralized them. I mean, they were fired up after that shot, but then they just so flat in overtime.
And I felt like I was saying, like in overtime, all they were doing was taking like contested threes. They weren't even like nice threes that they had worked to get open. You know what I mean? They would just get up to the line, dance around a little, chuck up the three, and kind of hope for the best.
You know, they kind of reminded me of like the Knicks from a couple of years ago, where all they would do is just chuck threes.
Yes. There's so many games we'd watch the Knicks, and it's like they would be down by 5, and then every possession they would just keep shooting threes and missing until they were down by 15.
Right. It's like, nah, man, just go for an easy 2. and like shrink their lead a little bit, and then
Yeah, you have to come away with points
Right.
there.
Exactly. And that's actually a very good transition to the other SEC team that lost. The Arkansas Razorbacks lost to Baylor last night. Yeah, Baylor. Baylor was up by they were up by 10 like a minute into the game. They got out to a 13-2 run, and then it just stayed at that 10-point lead. And towards the end of the game, Arkansas had a stretch where they missed 10 straight field goals because they were just taking threes and outside shots and just couldn't work the ball in. And Arkansas never really made that jump from a 9-point deficit. They got it down to 4, but they can never come within one possession. And Arkansas is the only team that I put in my Final Four that's been eliminated. Still got Gonzaga and Michigan who play tonight.
I honestly haven't even checked it in a couple days because
so let's do a little,
I've been redoing the studio again.
So the Basement Boys podcast has a tournament challenge on ESPN, as you all know. Right now, myself and Chris are the top 2.
Let's go.
Devin, you have one that's currently at 7, but you have a max left of 1,400. So, all right. So what it really comes down to is, Chris, you have Baylor winning it, and me and Devin have Gonzaga. So if Gonzaga wins, it's looking like me. If Baylor wins, it's probably all you. I don't see anybody else that has Baylor.
See, I told y'all from the beginning.
So you gotta go.
Coming in. I had a feeling Baylor was gonna get hot, and I'm taking them all the way.
Yeah, you're all in on Baylor. They play Houston in the first semifinal. That's going to be the all-Texas matchup.
That's a Texas
Then we
size
still
10-4
have-
right there.
Hell, yes. Then right now this is being recorded before the last 2 spots are determined. It's going to be USC versus Gonzaga. The winner of that goes to the Final Four, and then UCLA versus Michigan. So you have 2 1 seeds left, and they're both playing 2 surprises from the Pac-12. Anybody want to make any bold predictions on these games?
Gonzaga is going to win their game easily. I'm sorry. The way that they've been playing all season long, they're playing with a chip on their shoulder. You got to think of all the teams that Gonzaga has had in the past that haven't made it, that have been like, oh, this is going to be the year of Gonzaga. They're going to finally do it. They're going to do it. And they get to Elite 8 and then get knocked out, except for that one year with Adam Morrison and his stash. I think that was
I was just thinking
04 or something like that. No, this team
he apparently still does the radio call for them, and he's travels with the team, and he just does their practices with them. He'll get in the layup lines and just start shooting around with them.
Wow. I mean,
if you're Adam Morrison, everybody just knows you from having that mustache. And
right.
For Gonzaga.
And also being the first round pick of the Charlotte Bobcats. That's how long ago that was.
Wow. Shout out to the Bobcats.
But yeah, Gonzaga's they're gonna beat USC. Sorry, Eric.
All right. I got Gonzaga as my national champ, so my bracket accepts that. Chris?
And my bracket doesn't, all right? Gonzaga's going down, okay? Like you just said, they get to the Elite 8, and then they peter out. USC all day.
All right. I smell a wager coming between you two. I'll let you guys have that one. And then the game after that, the game after that, Michigan versus UCLA. Before we get there, I'm just gonna say it. The announcers are gonna comment that these two teams have met each other in the Rose Bowl however many times. I don't know, but I know that they've played the Rose Bowl against each other, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, you have, Troy Aikman from UCLA and all the Michigan Tom Brady and blah blah blah," and it's just they're gonna talk about the football programs a lot. Get ready for that. And they also both have blue and yellow.
Blue and yellow, blue and yellow.
The same thing popped into my head. I'm not gonna lie.
Get ready for that.
I was going to say, it's kind of funny how a lot of the announcers for the whole tournament have been talking about the football programs. With Bama, they've been like, oh, Bama's, highest ranking in the tournament. Been hanging out with Nick Saban or something like that. Like, throw it over there. I'm pretty sure with Arkansas, same thing. They mentioned, their football program a bunch. I'm like, yo, listen, can we focus on basketball for a month? Come on, guys.
I mean, you still got USC, and that's pretty much predominantly football program. Oregon was in this weekend. Michigan versus Florida State. Alabama versus UCLA. Like, that's what you would see in the football world.
Yeah, but you also have to understand that just football is what makes these schools the hundreds of millions and billions of dollars. So it's
Yeah.
always going to be focused on. You know what I mean?
And that's where Gonzaga is such a special program because they don't have a football team.
Still going down.
I like it. I would love to see a USC-UCLA matchup, the grudge match in the Final Four, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's going to be Michigan, Gonzaga. And
I
then
disagree. I think UCLA is coming off a hot game, and like you said, the Michigan game didn't look fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, UCLA has the smell of a team of destiny. Would you agree? Where it's like they had to win in overtime just to even be in the tournament, beat Michigan State, and they've just been on this run.
And I feel like they've been getting better as the games have been going on. Like, they played that close overtime thriller against Michigan State to get into the tournament. And then every opponent they just has started whooping. Like, I think they won like the first game by 10 points or something like that, then 20.
Yep. And then the Alabama game, but even that was an overtime game and they won by 10 points.
And these these single game elimination style tournaments, it's all about streaks. It's all about who gets hot when. So UCLA's on that hot streak right now, where Michigan didn't really have a great game coming out last time.
Well, also speaking of hot streaks, that's how Oregon State made it to the Elite Eight, right? Like, they were a 12 seed, predicted to come in 12th in the Pac-12. They just got hot, won the Pac-12 tournament, and then they ended Sister Jean. I think Sister Jean watched that game and she's like, my team lost to a bunch of beavers. Calls it quits. She's out.
Wow.
She's joining Lil Nas X. She's switching teams.
Oh, shit. Oh, my God.
I'm definitely diving into that before the end of the podcast because I've been watching the entire Twitter world lose their mind over it, and it's hilarious.
Oh, my God.
All right, but let's see where March Madness takes us. We'll do the Final Four next week. We'll have a preview of who we think is going to take it from there and what we loved about the tournament. I do want to go over to the women's side. We got to talk about how UConn has made their 13th straight Final Four, which is just a wild accomplishment. Congrats to them. But it was a 1-point game. Baylor had the ball with a chance to upset the UConn women's team. Baylor, I don't know the name of the player. I apologize. She goes up for a jumper and clearly got hit by at least two of the women on UConn. And there's no call. And LeBron James even tweeted out saying, has to be a call there. A lot of people were questioning it. Does this seem to you like, the NCAA didn't necessarily do it, but they're saying to the refs, look, we want UConn in the Final Four because they're UConn.
I don't think it goes that deep.
Is this tin hat?
I think you could definitely. Yeah, I think you could definitely say like it's a bad call. But you know what? I've seen certain angles of it that, like, I understand why they called it not a foul. But it's just when you have the luxury of looking at all the angles right then and there on ESPN, you kind of realize it's a little closer than you originally had anticipated. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, it's a bad call by the refs. Hey, they're humans. They make errors. And like you said, if you have the luxury of having 15 million cameras, at different angles and all that stuff, then you can be like, oh, yeah, look, right here is where they clearly make contact. But if the ref is like, 20 degrees off center or whatever and doesn't see it, then hey, unfortunately, bad call.
So what you're saying is very valid, and I think that's probably what it is. But it wouldn't shock me if, like, in the back of the ref's mind, they're thinking either I let them play and it's whatever, or I blow the whistle and I ruin UConn's year, and then everybody's, oh, why did the ref make this call? The ref ruined everything. Like, wow. So I think the ref made an active choice to let them play.
Which is how
You know what
I
I
mean,
mean?
personally, I feel like it should be that. Like, I kind of hate when games get decided by refs, like by like a little ticky tack call here or there, whatnot. I'm all about let the players play. But
And I think that's what the refs were going for in that situation. Just let the players play.
I think it's like just the fact
But
that
she
it's
did get
UConn.
fouled.
She did. But just because it's UConn, I think that had like nothing to play with it. I'm pretty sure if it was like any other team, could have been Mississippi State or South Carolina,
Well, South Carolina is like also a 1 seed, very talented women's team. But I think you make a good point there, Dev, that it's just let the players play. And then the other news story, scandal, whatever you want to call it, coming out of that game was Kim Mulcahy, the head coach of the women's team, had an incredibly stupid quote where like it's all right. I'm just gonna read it, and it's just not defensible in my opinion. Why can't I find the quote? Basically, what she said was it would be a real shame to see these players who've worked so hard be deprived of a Final Four because of a positive COVID test. And the internet doesn't like that. It's just not. That's just nah. Mm-mm.
My response to her would be, yes, it would be a shame if one of these players missed their chance at a Final Four because of a positive COVID test. That's why they should be doing everything in their power to follow the CDC guidelines and not become positive for COVID, so you won't risk the chance of coming up with a positive test.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
listen, it's gonna suck for anybody if they get COVID, and like, let's just say you're not a student athlete and you're just a student and you get COVID and then you gotta miss class and shit, and now you're behind when you should be graduating or something like that. Yeah, it sucks, but like you said, follow CDC guidelines, don't spread it, and you'll be good.
And it's amazing because she gave the press conference with a mask around her chin while saying they need to dump COVID testing. Wouldn't it be a shame to keep COVID testing and you got kids that test positive? But like, I agree with you. Everything you said is true. Follow the guidelines. Like, you don't have to worry. Like, the three of us, we don't wear masks when we see each other, but like we also wear masks constantly and wash our hands. And you two are vaccinated. I'm half vaxxed. I'm getting my second one later. Like, you do the right things. You don't have to worry about it. But she's viewing it as like what might happen to the kids if they don't make it to the Final Four. But like, what happens if they do make it to the Final Four, contract COVID, and then pass it to their family, and the family members get very sick? I don't know. It
Yeah,
just seems
exactly.
profoundly selfish, profoundly just stupid. And the irony of it is, and Devin, you said this right before we started recording, was that she tested positive herself in January.
So what if she spread it to her players during the season and didn't even give her players a chance to be in a tournament? I agree, Natalie.
It's just such like a tunnel vision type of quote. You know what I mean?
It's such a slap in the face to like all the healthcare workers that have been providing so much just to even have these tournaments happen, right? Like the constant testing, the accommodations, anything that like the NCAA, and I hate them as much as everyone else does, they really did do what needed to be done to make these tournaments just take place in the first, just to happen. And we're all lucky that they are happening, because last year we didn't have it and it sucked. And now you're going to come out and say that the COVID testing is going to deprive an 18-year-old a chance to win a championship where they're not getting taking the words right out of my mouth. I was just about to say that they don't get paid. What
Natalie's
happens if
very talkative today. But yeah, it's just like, look, these are people I think you make a great point there, because you're kind of putting them into this danger. When you're not their employer, you're just holding like an education over them. You're just holding like a chance to get into the league. Like, you know what I mean? It's almost like extortion.
All right, so we're moving on from college to the pros. In the NBA, we have the official buyout season, which I guess is the new thing after the trade deadline. Whoever doesn't get traded buys out their contract and joins a super team. First, LaMarcus Aldridge, who was bought out by the Spurs, joins the Brooklyn Nets. They now have a super team. Between the roster, they have 41 All-Star appearances, 2 MVPs, and I mean, I'm just doing the math right now, thinking about it. Kyrie, Durant, they got at least 3 champions. And then the other big name is Andre Drummond, who went the exact opposite direction and went to Los Angeles to join the Lakers. So let's take a minute
Another
and just
super
pretend,
team.
let's just pretend that all the starters, Anthony Davis, LeBron, Kevin Durant, everybody's healthy. Who wins this 7-game series?
I go Lakers.
Yeah, I'm still going Lakers.
Like,
Really?
yeah, I mean, LeBron is LeBron. You can't count him out. He's been there before. He's done it. Hell, he's been doing it for the last 10 straight seasons of making it to the finals and everything. And, you know, and also that team won last year. And I think Drummond.
And they've gotten better.
Yeah, and Drummond was with LeBron when he was in Cavs, right? And they won a chip together? No?
Nope. Drummond was on the Pistons for most of his career. He's only been on the Cavs for the last year.
Oh, my mistake. Well, either way, Drummond's hungry. You know he wants that ring. Them boys, the rest of them boys are like, yo, we did it before. We could do it again. Let's run it back like the Bucks and everything. And LeBron's going to set that example and get it done.
And you got to remember, when they were both healthy last year, LeBron and AD were top 3 in the world.
Right, and but when Kevin Durant's healthy, he's probably that number 2 guy. Like he's in there, and Harden's probably top 5.
I get what you're saying.
Harden's probably top 5. Kyrie, I would say, is top 10, maybe top 15. But then I don't know. The Nets just got the shooting. I just think the Nets would win that game. 7-game series, 2 evenly matched teams. But when you got Joe Harris, you got this kid Claxton's been coming off the bench playing great for the Nets. Can't forget DeAndre Jordan, because DeAndre Jordan's a good enough defender that he's not going to stop Anthony Davis, but he can defend him. Blake Griffin can provide a little bit off the bench. I'm not sold on Blake Griffin being 100% healthy. And the same thing with LaMarcus Aldridge is that LaMarcus Aldridge hasn't been battling injuries like Blake, but LaMarcus Aldridge he's not the guy that Portland had 10 years ago, you know? He's slowed down, just naturally he does, but I still think he has a lot left in the tank. And if it's like a Marcus Aldridge posting up on Marcus Morris or Markieff Morris, whichever Morris twin they have, I think LaMarcus Aldridge wins that one.
But I also think, like we've been talking about, the Nets just have to be good enough on defense. I don't know if they can be that good enough for the Lakers. When the Lakers can defend and play offense when everyone's healthy, I think adding Drummond, adding a little more size, I don't know. I just think, I think LeBron's the X factor in anything because he's LeBron. There's a reason we talk about him in anything. And I think LeBron and AD is just such an amazing tandem. They looked so great last year. Then they upgraded to Dennis Schroeder from Rajon Rondo. They added Drummond. You know what I mean?
But I think in the playoff Rondo is a real thing, and his leadership definitely helped them down the stretch.
Yeah, it helped the young guys, but those young guys are now another year in the league, so they're a year wiser, so to say, and you still got LeBron's valuable mentorship for there. Like, I'm pretty sure, LeBron's in the gym and you guys, they got them young kids that are like, yo, LeBron's getting it. Like, fuck it. Let me go shoot around with LeBron. Let me pick his brain real quick.
I think the one difference. Or, go ahead, Chris.
I think Rondo definitely helps, but I think LeBron is probably the only better leader in the NBA, and we've said this before, is probably Chris Paul. Like, you know what I mean? So I think the leadership helps, and I think Rondo kind of checked LeBron when he needed to be checked, but I think they picked up enough guys with enough credit to be able to do that. You know what I mean?
I think the one difference between, because you said Schroeder to Rondo, I think the one difference is that while Schroeder is a much better scorer, Rondo is a better on-ball defensive player. And Rondo also, when he has the ball on offense, he creates space for everybody. Because we know LeBron can play point guard, but if LeBron's playing point guard, you don't have to worry about off-the-ball LeBron, right? Like, you can double LeBron when he has the ball, and I'll leave Kyle Kuzma open in the corner. He's a good scorer, but I'd rather let Kyle Kuzma take an open shot than let LeBron James carry the ball up. And on the Nets, you have Kyrie, Harden, Kevin Durant all on the floor at the same time. So whoever's bringing up the ball, you can't double. I mean, Joe Harris is a great three-point shooter. He's over 50% on catch and shoot threes. So you can't afford to double anybody. I mean, it'll be an electric series, and I can't wait to watch it. It's going to be very fun, but I would go Nets. Twitter.
I just think the Lakers can keep up. And I think, like we said, the Nets would need to be good enough to get one more stop than they need. I don't think they can do one more stop than what the Lakers can do.
I'm gonna post this on NBA Twitter. I'm gonna tweet this out from the Basement Boys account. Follow us on Twitter, Basement Boys Podcast. Let us know your thoughts. We should also do Instagram and all the other stuff.
All those things.
We'll put it out there.
We're there.
Just real quick, just related to this subject in general, was James Harden had another triple-double a couple days ago and was asked afterwards where he thinks he stands in the MVP race, and he just said, "I am the MVP."
I mean, listen.
It's going to be hard for him to get the votes. It's going to be hard for him to get the votes because of the super team he's on, but also Durant has played 19 games this year. Harden's played more than that for the Nets, and Kyrie Irving keeps missing time, and the Nets just keep winning. I think Harden has to be I think he's moved into the top tier where it's between him, Jokic, Embiid, and LeBron.
Every week since the basketball season started, Eric has a new pick for MVP. Every episode.
No.
It was Jokic at first.
Chris Paul, I think last week.
Last week it was Chris Paul. Now all of a sudden it's Harden again.
No. That's the hardest is rising the boards. I still vote Jokic.
Well, spring is here. Spring training's done, and baseball's back with a vengeance. It's baseball news.
Even a monster hungry.
When he's on, he is some of the nastiest stuff in the game.
Let's just start off by saying the Dodgers are probably going to win the World Series again. They're the favorites. Nope. They only got better from last year. It's really just them, the Padres, and the Yankees, and then a step back.
Nope. Yankees fan. Just have to say, Yankees are winning it all every year. That's the expectation.
That's the standard is the standard.
Even though it's not really the standard anymore because we haven't won since 2009. But
Which is so crazy to actually think oh yeah, that's the last time they won.
It's been 12 years since I've had a championship. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself.
We got spoiled growing up. Being like, oh yeah, this is what you're supposed to get.
12 years without a championship. How will I live?
Look, we get it. You're used to this. You lose all the time. You're a Jets fan. You're a Knicks fan. You're a Mets fan. You're used to losing.
I've literally not seen a championship in my lifetime.
I understand what it feels like. I need that rush again, all right?
The closest for me was when we got there, World Series 6 years ago. Lost to the Royals. 2015. But let's do it. Do you guys want to go? Let's do division by division, league by league. Let's do American League, then National League.
Okay.
So we got a lot of similarities. For the American League East, unanimous decision. We chose the Yankees to win. And Devin and I both have the Blue Jays as wildcard teams.
Mm-hmm.
Chris?
I'm not good with picking the wild card teams. I just picked the division winners. I'm not gonna lie to anybody.
No, that's fair. I just think that the Blue Jays, Devin, I'm sure this is your thinking too. The Blue Jays were a really good team last year and just got better in the offseason by adding Springer.
Yeah.
So last year,
No, I definitely think it's a solid play. Don't get me wrong.
Last year was all the young guys. The all of the kids. Kevin Biggio, son of Craig, Vlad Guerrero Jr., son of Vlad, Bo Bichette, who's a stud, the son of Dante Bichette. You had Springer. They added Marcus Semien. I think they're just going to make that step up. They'll be the last playoff spot in the NL.
You sound like you're like reading off their like Game of Thrones names. Vlad Guerrero Jr., son of Vlad.
George Springer, cheater of baseball.
Oh.
People forget. AL
I don't
Central. AL Central, we all know. All right, Chris and I are on the White Sox. Devin, explain yourself why you picked the Twins.
Well, I forget what's his name. Abreu. I think it's just suffered a torn pectoral muscle.
Eloy Jimenez.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
I was totally wrong. I'm sorry. There's a
Different
baby.
player,
There's a
lineup.
baby. Distracted me right now. But yeah, I feel like he's a key part of their offense, and they're gonna lose, like struggle slowly in the beginning, and I'm not sure if they'll be able to make up the ground. Even though I know it's a long ass season, 162 games.
162 is a long ass season.
I feel like the Twins will just get out to an early start, and the Sox are going to play catch up.
All right, that's possible. I have the Twins as a wild card. The White Sox winning the division. You have it the other way around. So we have similar train of thoughts there. Chris, anything you want to add to this conversation about the AL Central?
I see Devin's point, but just at the same time, I just think that the White Sox are just a very, very solid team all around. I think while they will probably come out a little slow, I don't think it's going to be slow enough to keep them from extending out that lead throughout the 162 game season. I don't think it's going to slow them down enough.
Yeah, I think last year in the 60 game, grain of salt season, they one game separated the two teams, and the White Sox got Liam Hendricks as their closer, who's one of the best closers in baseball. I don't know. It's a lot of young players like Yohan Moncada and a lot of top prospects, Nick Madrigal. They're just going to get better. So I think that works for their advantage, where like the Twins are relying on guys like Josh Donaldson, who's later part of his career. Nelson Cruz is 40. He's a man. He's 40. I think that's going to backfire. So I think either way, I think those are the clear top two teams. I mean, the Kansas City Royals might have a team. The Indians, they traded Lindor for peanuts. The Tigers are a minor league team. So it's going to be between those two teams. So let's move over to the West, where again, Dev, you zigged where me and Chris zagged. Chris and I both picked the Astros. You picked the Oakland Athletics.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I don't have faith in the Astros this year. I mean, losing Springer, it's a big piece of that offense. Like
and Verlander's going to be hurt for most of the season.
Right. They lost Garrett Cole. Like I know they lost him last year, but now having a full season, I feel like it's going to be the effects of that are going to be a lot worse. And I think Carlos Correa is. I think he's going to be a free agent at the end of this year, and he stopped talking about an extension. But I feel like that might be a distraction. Like he might not be talking about it, but media might be questioning him, like, "Hey, what's going on? What are you thinking?" And I feel like all that's just going to cause him to take a step back.
I'm Bill Belichick. You're a distraction.
Yeah, the A's.
Yeah.
So I'm going with the A's on that one.
I honestly 100% see your points. Like, you laying it out like that kind of makes me second guess myself a little bit. But what I will say for the Astros is we talk about the Altuves, we talk about the Correas, we talked about Garrett Cole when he was there. It's still just a very well put together team, whether or not they're cheating. So
Yeah.
I think at very least regular season, I don't expect them to go on quite as bit of a run as they did last year, and obviously prior. But to make the postseason, I expect them to win that division.
Yeah, Dev, you kind of also convinced me a little bit on the Astros, just looking at like how they have these good young pitchers, and then on offense they have Olsen, who had a great year, but like Matt Chapman had a terrible year last year in the 60 games. He's going to bounce back. They can hit. They had a good bullpen with Rosenthal, but to Chris's point, the Astros, like, they still have a good team. Like, Greinke's their ace. He's not, the Greinke of 10 years ago, but he's still a good pitcher. They have these young guys with great names. There's Jose Urquidy, who had a good year last year. He got hit a little bit, but he's got the strikeout stuff. And then they have Framber Valdez, and Framber's an all-time name.
All time.
But the Astros lineup is still, I mean, Alex Bregman could have won MVP last year. He's going to hit 30 home runs, 100 RBIs. He's got the power. He doesn't steal bases, but he's got the average. Like, he's there. Great hitter. Correa, less average, more power. Altuve is a big question mark because he had a really bad last year. But like we've been saying, when it's 60 games, it's kind of hard to tell. Everybody has huge expectations for these two young outfielders and Kyle Tucker, who has some speed, some power, is a great fielder, like one of the best fielding prospects in baseball. And then Jordan Alvarez, who won Rookie of the Year 2 years ago, played half the season and hit like 26 home runs. I personally think he could hit 50.
Yeah, that's an organization that can build a team and like do it the right way. So
they used all the analytics and cheating stuff. So yeah, they can put together a team.
Oh yeah.
And so that's who we got for the divisions. Who do you guys have as your predictions for MVP and Cy Young in the American League?
I'll take a little bit of a hot take.
Yeah.
I think this is also me being a Yankee homer. Just is what it is. But after the whole offseason drama, after the whole fighting to really stay here, I think it put in that extra little chip on DJ LeMahieu's shoulders. I expect him to have a huge year. I can see him pulling it out.
DJ LeMahieu for MVP?
Yeah.
He was definitely in the conversation each of the last 2 years.
I could see that.
Absolutely.
And I just think the whole battle to get back to the Yankees has kind of put a chip on his shoulder, being like, all right, you didn't think I was worth this. I'm going to show you I was worth this and more. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I can see that. And especially on top of that lineup, he's going to have a lot of really good numbers. He's going to be, he is the leader of that team, essentially. When you look at,
yeah, he's really come in and taken over that whole team in the last couple of years.
Well, but he, as a leader, I mean, obviously Stanton and Judge are huge players, but they've constantly been hurt. The amount of injuries that the Yankees have seen the last 2 years, LeMahieu has been that one constant part of the lineup, constantly. He's a good fielder at second base, at shortstop. They don't play him at shortstop, but at third, at first, like he's such a useful guy. He's the glue guy. He keeps the team together. I could definitely see that.
Yeah, and like you said, he's the Swiss Army knife of that team. Anytime anyone goes out, he can pick up the slack anywhere.
I'm sure if they needed him to play catcher, yeah.
I was going to say, I think he even plays a little bit of outfield, right?
I wouldn't surprise me. He's a very versatile player. I'm going to take the easiest option and just say my prediction is this guy named Mike Trout.
Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like every time we put like him and the Bryce Harpers and all that on the pedestal, they just come out and disappoint because there's no way they can kind of live up to where we're putting them.
Yeah, but last year he played 53 games, hit 17 home runs. Like, roughly speaking, that's 50 on a full 160 game schedule. His last
I'm not saying he
full-
plays bad.
His last, like 2019, he didn't play. He only played 130 games. He still had 45 home runs, 100 RBI, 11 steals. So he stopped stealing bases. But like, he's Mike Trout. He's the best player in baseball. I just think
No, yeah, I get it.
I think after last year, he's going to be on a fuck you tour. Sorry, Nat, cover your ears. And he's going to go nuclear. And I think my bold prediction is that Mike Trout's going to put up one of the, if not the best season. We'll see. Like, I think he's going to hit 50 home runs, probably not steal as many bases, but like hit 330. I think he's just going to take it to another level.
I can see it.
So to finish up with the American League, let's do our prediction for the championship series. I'm saying the White Sox are going to beat your Yankees, and the White Sox are going to the World Series. Sorry, boys.
Same play, opposite winner.
I'm going to be a homer and go with my Yankees going to the World Series, getting it done. World Series or bust.
Let's go.
All right.
I still think the White Sox are going to get there, though.
Yeah. You're just being the homer for your team. We're going to write these down because we said we were going to write these down for the NBA season, and we never did. And my prediction, because my very consistent prediction for NBA MVP, because I don't change, before the season was Steph Curry. And then I think a week in, I said Dame Lillard. So it's a ever.
And then a week after that, you said Jokic. And a week after that, you said Chris Paul.
And a week after that,
And
you
now
said Natalie.
Now I'm leading Harden, and it's all over the place. Let's move to the National League. Seems like
I don't even like that league.
that's racist, but we have a lot of similarities here. Literally. Okay, so the only difference between us at all is that I took the Mets to win the East and the Braves to be the wild card. Devin has the Braves as the Braves winning the East and the Mets as the wild card. Other than that, like, we all picked the Dodgers. We all picked the Cardinals. Chris, you also picked the Braves. I'm just gonna throw it out there that I think the Mets actually do have a better team than the Braves, and that's not just me being a homer. I think if you look at the pitching staffs, like DeGrom's the best pitcher between either of those teams, and then I would say Stroman's better than anybody on the Braves staff. The Braves have a better lineup. I'll give them that, but I think the Mets just have better pitching.
But I think this is the same thing we say every year for the past like 3-4 years going into a Mets season. Oh, their pitching's fantastic, but when they're only scoring one run every 6 games.
Oh, that's not the problem with the Mets. The Mets' problem is that they don't stay healthy. Like, they don't score runs because nobody stays healthy.
I was about to say, like, yeah,
It's still scoring runs,
the
though.
Mets do have like a great rotation, but we saw what happened last year when half of their rotation went down, and you were just solely relying on DeGrom to get you that win.
Yeah, DeGrom won a Cy Young, I think, with like a 500 record. Yeah.
Like 11 wins.
I mean, Syndergaard
yeah.
supposedly coming back. Is he going to be the same pitcher he was before? Is he going to be able to hit home runs and win games by himself?
It's going to be hard. I mean, Tommy John surgery, half the time guys don't come back the same, but I still think Stroman's a very underrated pitcher. And
But
he's
I
from
also
Long
think
Island.
I think with Syndergaard, we have this conversation every time he gets hurt. He just gets hurt all the time. And then he comes back, and while he's healthy, he pitches great. But then he just gets hurt again.
That's the story of the Mets. That's literally the story of the Mets. If they're healthy, they're good. I mean,
So I'm not super worried. I'm not super worried about Thor in the fact of will he have it or will he not anymore. He always seems to figure it out. I'm just worried about how many games you're going to have him this season before he ends the season.
Right. No, I completely agree. I mean, knock on wood, we're very fortunate that right now, like, we still have a couple of starters. I mean, Carrasco's already hurt, but we still have DeGrom, we still have Stroman, we still have Peterson, but it's just, can they stay healthy? Because with Lindor, Alonso, Conforto, McNeil, Dom Smith, the Mets have a pretty good lineup. I'll say the Braves do have a better lineup. It's just, you know,
I think Lindor could be a big piece to that. Just consistent hitting.
yeah. And he's a good fielder. And
Yeah.
he steals bases. He's a great player. It's, I mean,
And he
the
has a great
Braves,
smile.
though, great smile. The Braves, though, like Acuna, stud. Freeman, reigning MVP. Albies is good. They re-signed Ozuna. Travis d'Arnaud had an amazing season. You have this kid Austin Riley who put up 24 home runs 2 years ago, and he homered like, I think he was up in the National League leaders last year in the short season. It's going to come down to the two of them. The Central, we all picked the Cardinals. I think that's just out of the Cardinals being the Cardinals, and that division's pretty weak.
They've gotten better while everyone else is doing blah. I mean, you look at the Cubs and they've lost or are going to lose half of their stars in the core team. So they're taking a step back, rebuilding. And
I think that whole division's kind of rebuilding besides the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Or at least getting there.
and don't forget, they also signed Nolan.
They traded for
Arenado?
Nolan Arenado.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I almost said Nolan Ryan.
they get Nolan Arenado, not Ryan, and they gave up nothing for him, so that's
Right.
huge for the Cardinals. And I agree with what you both have said. Every other team in the division, the Cubs. Okay, the Cubs lost Darvish, Lester, Schwarber. The
Mhm.
Reds lost Bauer. The Brewers didn't gain or didn't make any moves, and then the Pirates are essentially a AAA team,
Oh yeah, I forgot the Pirates.
right? According to Fangraphs, the Pirates, Orioles, and Rockies all have a 0.1% chance of making the playoffs before the season begins.
So you're saying there's a chance?
There's a chance. Roll the dice. And then out west, we all picked the Dodgers to win the division and then the Padres to come in with the second and win the wild card. Those two teams are just so loaded.
Yeah. If the Dodgers don't at least make it back to the World Series this year, I'll be shocked.
Yeah,
Be a failure if they don't.
right. There's just too many stars. Their outfield has 2 MVPs. Their pitching staff has 3 Cy Young Award winners and Walker Buehler, who might be the best of all of them right now. Their bullpen, Jansen's incredible. Like, just so much talent on that team. And then the Padres too. Tons of talent. A bit younger, but still.
Yeah, I think experience is probably going to lead the way for the White Sox to get to the World Series. I'd probably say over the Padres in my opinion, but
The Dodgers, you mean?
I'm saying over the Padres.
Yeah, but you said the White
I'm saying
Sox.
like, oh, did I? Sorry, yeah, the Dodgers.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, I agree. And my World Series prediction is that the Dodgers beat the Padres in the championship series, and then the Dodgers beat the White Sox in the World Series.
I guess
Wrong.
I could see that, except for the fact that the Yankees will win the series.
Yeah, see, that's the thing.
Are you both saying Yankees over Dodgers?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
We gotta put a little money on it. We could make it interesting. Do you guys have any picks for MVP in the National League? Any Cy Young? Any?
I'll say my MVP is going to be Fernando Tatis.
Solid, excellent young
Yeah.
player.
I can agree with that. I think DeGrom's probably going to win Cy Young again, though. I think just what he's been doing the past few years has been awesome. He has other pitchers behind him to like take some of the pressure off of him.
And the team can hit this year.
Yeah, and they have a lot better hitting. So I think he might have an actually decent record this time when winning the Cy Young.
I'm gonna say, yeah.
Oh, you go.
I'm gonna say for MVP, my pick's gonna be Juan Soto on the Nationals, just because like last year he had to miss the first 2 weeks of the short season because of COVID. Yeah. Yeah. COVID's scary. She's right. He had COVID positive test on opening day, so he had to miss the first 2 weeks, and he still was amongst the league leaders and everything. I think kid's just on another level. But I agree, Cy Young, DeGrom, he's been so dominant the last like 2-3 years, and everyone's saying this year in spring training, he's hitting 100 miles an hour more consistently. He's painting the corners. Like, he looks better the last bit of baseball. We got a lot of young players all around the league. We talked about Tatis, Juan Soto, all of these young stars taking over the game. Who's got next? Answer is, it might not be for a year or two. Wander Franco. He's a shortstop in the Rays organization. 19 years old. Hasn't even played Double-A yet, but he's already being compared to being the next Trout, the next Acuna, the next Fernando Tatis because he plays shortstop. So he's probably going to get called up somewhere late in the season for the Rays, depending. I mean, like we keep saying with the Mets, depending on injuries. Let's say somebody gets hurt, he's going to be the first guy they call up. So Wander Franco, Randy Arozarena are going to be the future of the Rays. They're going to find some way to be the Rays and be in the playoff run. I just was personally, when LeBron James came into the sports universe, I was young. I was in elementary school, so I didn't get the chance to really buy into the hype and see him, see him in high school before he became LeBron James, who we know today. I want to be in. I want to be early on the Wander Franco train. They call him the Wonder Man, the Wonder Kid. I'm all in.
Really? How old were you when LeBron came into the league?
LeBron's rookie season was 2003. I was 9. I actually did have a LeBron James shirt, but I didn't fully embrace him as the next great thing just because I was 9. I just didn't know. I was watching Kobe thinking Kobe is the best ever. And I'm not saying this kid Wander Franco is going to be the best ever, but I'm ready to be okay, this is somebody.
You're ready to believe.
I'm ready to believe. I'm putting my eyes on him. I'm believing. File it away in my hope the Mets trade for him.
All right, we've talked baseball to death. So let's jump into my favorite part of the show. Let's get into a little fight talk. All right, so just kind of leading into this fight, I only want to touch on the last 3 fights real quick. Went 4-1 in my picks altogether. Lost the first fight, but that was the fight I was probably most worried about out of all the picks. So it was what it was.
80% though. Can't knock that.
No, yeah, I've been hitting a lot of 4-1s, which is great for me as far as my record of picking, but terrible for me because I put a parlay on every pay-per-view picks I do.
Round
It's only
robin.
$5.
We're doing round robin from now on.
It's only a $5 parlay, but still a parlay.
I'm teaching you about round robins right after this recording.
That's fine. Yeah, I'm still new to this whole gambling shit. But yeah, so let's jump into it. Sean O'Malley is a fucking problem in the bantamweight division. Almost knocked him out 3 times. I mean, technically 2, but you can count it as 3. Came out looking sharp, looking crisp. Thomas Almeida was just biting on every single feint he threw. And he almost ended it with a head kick in the first. Wanted the walk-off. Didn't go in to finish it up. Let Almeida get back up. And it cost O'Malley another 2 rounds of damage. Even though he was dealing out most of the damage, he was getting hit. It's not like he was completely clean at the end of that fight. But there was really no, Almeida really had no significant answer for O'Malley. It was just an absolute masterclass, just a domination. And man, when the ref did not stop it the second time, O'Malley really wanted to leave, absolutely no doubt. And that fist he landed while Almeida was down. was fucking nightmare fuel. Like, he hit him so hard, and he was already gone. He did not react to the punch whatsoever. He was already on Queer Street.
So
And
I've
just-
asked you this before in regards to other fights. Do you think this is another one where the referee probably should have stepped in earlier?
Yes, but I understand why the ref didn't. Because when he fell, he kind of turned towards Sean. He kind of like made it seem like he was aware that he was still in a fight. But then just as that punch came down, it just kind of became clear that he might have had like some recognition, like where he was, whatever, but he was not all there in like the actual sense. He was definitely dealing with some type of fogginess in his head no matter what. The one other thing I did want to say about Sean O'Malley, though, is he was using this weird, like, look away feint where he'd be going, and then all of a sudden which is something I'd never really seen before. But when I heard him explain it in the press conference, I understood it a little more, but I'm still not positive I love it. Basically, he does a lot of spinning attacks. He'll throw spinning kicks, like, to the body, to the head. He'll throw spinning back fists. Like, he's just a very flashy type of fighter, so he's doing that type of stuff a lot. So I guess his reasoning behind it is when he does that, you have to respect the spin. He could be spinning. He could be going for a spinning wheel kick to the face. He could, you know what I mean?
Seems like just
So
a
it gets him.
keep him guessing kind of move.
Right. But the thing that worries me about it, especially now that he's talked about it, especially he used it a lot in that fight. I feel like if he starts using that to the extent he did in this fight, in other fights, like, I feel like that's something guys can pick up on and just kind of catch him as he's coming back. And he has no idea where the punch is coming from because he literally can't see it because he turns his head. It's a move that interests me, but like, I feel like it, now that it's out and now that it's known and now that people have seen it, it's something that could cause problems for him. It just, I don't know. I've never had a strong opinion on a feint, except for whether or not you should use them, which you should definitely like use feints. But
Real quick, for our less knowledgeable fight fans, explain what you mean by feint.
a feint is like when you start to look like you're about to throw a punch, but you don't.
It's essentially a pump fake.
So, yeah, but so if you can get a fighter, like if I throw a fake and I see you react to it, I can throw the fake, have you react to it in a way that I'm planning for, and then throw another punch on top of it that works against your reaction. You know
So
what I
it's
mean?
A strategic pump fake.
Right.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so I just thought that was a little weird. Moving on up the card, we had Tyron Woodley versus Fercente Lucay. And I will say for Tyron Woodley, even though he lost to a very tough fighter, Fercente Lucay, like I said, has been lurking in the background for for a few years now, and it's finally like putting his streak together. Tyron Woodley looked like Tyron Woodley. He came out. He was aggressive. He was trying to be first. He was throwing shots. He was engaging in the wrestling. And it's what I've been saying that I've been wanting to see out of Tyron Woodley to like show me he's truly back. But I think he just lost to a very strong fighter in Fercente Lucay. And I feel like he kind of overcompensated a bit for his lack of aggressiveness in his last fight. I think he just had it in his head, like, if this is my last fight in the UFC, because this was the last fight on his 6-fight deal, he's lost 4 in a row now. It's probably his last fight in the UFC. He's probably not going to get signed back.
He lost this weekend.
Yes. But he just looked like himself. He got caught because I feel like he was overcompensating for his lack of aggression in his last few fights and was overly aggressive. The hand that caught him was because he just kind of rushed in, tried to rush the finish after stinging Fercente, and just left himself open for a big shot just coming in head first. So I
You
feel
got a
like
lesson learned Listen, it's the oldest time. Just too aggressive and you get knocked out.
Yeah, but like I said, I think he was trying to. I think the reason he was so overly aggressive is because that's the thing in his last like 3 fights is just he didn't pull the trigger. He couldn't get past that mental block. So he came out from the second that first bell sounded and jumped right on top of Lucay and tried to force the grappling. And you know what I mean? Like he made it a point in this fight to rectify that mistake. And I think he just went a little too far. I think if he could have reeled it back just a little bit, this would have been a lot closer of a fight, even though it was a fantastic fight. I was just happy that at least if this is Woodley's last fight in the UFC or this is Woodley's last fight period, we got to see Woodley going out like Woodley and not just getting squashed by like Gilbert Burns or Colby Covington.
So you think he's done in the UFC?
Oh yeah, I don't think he's. Dana kind of alluded to it. He's had back and forth with the UFC when he was champion, so like that never helps your chances. He's 39 now, I believe. He lost his last 4. This is his last fight on his 6-fight deal. And again, the UFC has been making this point of, letting, even if they're still high-level fighters, even if they still have the big name, they'll just kind of cut bait with these guys that probably don't have a way back to the title just because they don't need to put the marketing in you and they can let their young guys flourish.
So what do you think's next for him?
It depends on if he wants to fight or not. I think one championship has some good options for him. Bellator always has some good options for him. Bellator's trying to get out of the older fighter game themselves. They signed Yoel Romero, but Yoel Romero is still probably top 10 in the world. Where you could make an argument that Woodley would do well there. I think Woodley would be great in like PFL. I think he'd be great in 1. But that's if he wants to keep going. Some guys, once the UFC gets taken away from them, it's not like the juice isn't worth the squeeze anymore. But I still think he has some fighting left in him now that he showed he can get over that like mental block he had. And I think if he wants to keep doing it, he could keep doing it in like the PFL or the Bellator or the One Championships.
All right, that makes sense to
and
me.
then-
Stay fighting, just
and
not in
then-
the UFC.
I'm not convinced necessarily he'll do that, but he can I think he can if he wants to. And then obviously the main event of the evening. Fuck Francis Ngannou is terrifying.
That was
Absolutely
incredible.
terrifying.
So why don't you give us a
He
quick
came-
recap of the main event for those who didn't see?
So the fight starts. Francis comes out a lot more calm, a lot more measured than he did in the first fight. In the first fight,
he's
he came out
fighting against
Stipe Miocic.
who was the champ.
Stipe Miocic.
There you go.
He in the first fight, he kind of came out just swinging haymakers, putting everything into it, trying to get him out of there, and he just couldn't. He just wasn't really connecting, and he just gassed himself out. And then Stipe just took him down, hung on his head, just took every last bit of air out of his body, basically.
It was pretty.
he was gassed by the
pretty
second
close to
round.
murder.
And then, but this fight, Francis came out. He was picking his shots. He was working distance because he has a good amount of reach on Stipe to begin with. He landed a big shot that set him down. I don't know how it didn't finish him. He got to the ground. He started throwing bombs to end the round. I'm amazed none of those fucking finished Stipe either. Say what you want about Stipe. Stipe has a fucking granite chin.
Absolutely.
After some of the shots I saw him eat from Ngannou, that was amazing. So moving into the second round, Stipe really, or no, that might have still been the first round, but Stipe really did try to force the grappling, but you can tell just how much Francis has been working on that. The sprawl he hit Stipe with was beautiful. Threw his legs back with full force, got all the weight of his hip down onto Stipe's head. He had no shot of finishing that takedown. And once I saw him stuff that takedown the way he did, I knew it was over. Everyone knew it was over because that's all Stipe really had. It was just only a matter of time before he made that mistake and got absolutely decapitated like he did.
Where does
Man,
for
he set him
you-
down with a jab. It was just beautiful. What are you saying?
for you, where does that rank amongst the most vicious knockouts? Because for me, as a casual fan watching, what is that noise? Do you hear that too, or is that just me?
I think that's you.
Okay, sorry, my computer's making weird noises. Sorry, for me, seeing Francis knock out Stipe Miocic like that was one of the most whoa, let's go, knockouts I've seen. It really it was exciting. Riled me up a bit.
I mean, it was don't get me wrong, it was a crazy knockout, but I don't think that's even Francis's top 3.
Really?
Yeah, Francis when he hits people, he kills them. Absolutely murders them. And that one was a great knockout. He put him to sleep, but I wouldn't put that in my top 10 all time. I think there's plenty of. I'll send you some wild knockouts after the show.
Cool.
But yeah, I really don't know who is next for Francis. When the fight ended, I was like, okay, here we go. John Jones. We've been talking about it forever, but now he's doing his whole I want more money, the same thing he does every few years. He's threatening the UFC to be like, hey, just release me. I don't want to do this, blah, 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 blah. And honestly, I think they could at this point.
You think they will release him?
I'm not saying they will. I'm saying I think they could. I don't think they will just because he's a big name. And they kind of just have him stuck. You know what I mean? So they don't want to release him to give to these other guys. Because all they have to do to fulfill their end of the contract is offer him, I think, 2 fights a year. If he turns them down, he turns them down.
Right.
But it's, you know what I mean?
They make the offer.
Yeah.
Interesting. So what do you think is actually going to be the next step for him? Is he going to fight? Or is he going to turn it down? Is he going to leave? A lot of
I don't know. John Jones is just. I'm so over John Jones at this point. I used to be the biggest fan of him. I love guys we talked about it before. I love watching greatness. I love watching these things. It's just he creates so many problems for himself. And I understand addiction is a hard thing. I hope he gets the help he needs with all that, and he seems to be doing better. But he just puts himself in bad situations and then tries to play the victim on top of it. You test positive, you try to play the victim. You're making this whole big deal about going to heavyweight, and all of a sudden, you want to renegotiate your deal. And look, we said it before, we're with the idea of the employee over the employer. But just every single thing with John Jones is a problem.
He
they
seems
can't
like
get
a
the deal
diva.
done. Yeah. He can't get the deal done. He's crashing cars. He's getting DUIs. It's just every time you think, okay, we're getting somewhere with John, we're starting to get it moving, it just ends up bad. And I'm so sick of just, okay, what's stopping John Jones from fighting this week? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it seems like there's constantly some trouble, and he's just gotta. Seems like he's really just gotta sort life out first, and then come back to fighting.
But yeah, so I think the only 2 other logical options for fighting Francis at this point is either Stipe rematch, which I get it. He's the greatest heavyweight of all time. He has the most title defenses. He has all the records you can think of in the heavyweight division. But he got stopped so soundly, and I feel like the punch he threw right before getting knocked out was the only real solid shot I saw him land the whole fight. He landed some other shots, and he landed some other nice shots, but that was the only real big shot I think he had that whole fight, where Francis sat him down a couple times. Francis was having a lot more success. I think the fight goes back the same way if they ran it back, but it's also the rubber match. They're 1-1. Part of me thinks you have to do that. But at the same time, I could totally see them throwing in Derek Lewis because they have already fought before. They fought after Ngannou lost to Stipe the first time, and his confidence was a little shaken, and neither of them really engaged. Which, like, people think Derek Lewis is this exciting fighter, and I love Derek Lewis. I love watching him fight because he always has that threat of
He is a very
one punch, it's
entertaining
over.
fighter.
But during the fights, he's never been the guy to have high output. He'll sit and wait for that one big shot he can throw, and then you just remember the big shot because he knocks the fuck out of people. So I think Francis was a little more tentative after the Stipe fight. Derek Lewis is always kind of a little more sit back, wait for that big shot. So it just became it became actually a very terrible fight. Like, there was like fucking 11 punches thrown in the whole thing. Like, it was,
Yeah.
it was such a bad fight, but I think with Francis now doing all the right things in training, him having his confidence, he came back, he beat Stipe. I think doing that fight a second time is going to be monstrous. I think it's going to be a great fight, and I would love if that was what the UFC decided to do next. I want to see the John Jones fight, but I just have no faith in John Jones anymore.
Yeah, this is a time to just assume he's not going to fight until proven otherwise.
Yeah, that's basically how I feel about it.
Interesting. Because he is a top name, top draw, and he's, like you said, kind of sabotaging himself.
And he does it all the time. And I used to be the biggest John Jones fan. I loved John Jones. I would pull for him in the DC fight, blah, 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 blah. I was hoping that they fought at heavyweight just so I could pull for DC and hopefully have it. Like, John Jones just needs to shut up. Just, that's what it is at this point. I'm sorry.
He needs to stop talking and start proving.
Like, John, I know you can beat the shit out of me. It is what it is. You just need to shut up. I'll take that ass whooping if I ever saw you.
Chris versus John Jones, the main event
Yeah.
of the evening.
No, definitely don't want to do that, but you know what? I'll
9-1?
say it.
I'd like to report a murder.
Yeah, for real.
John Jones just killed my friend.
No, for real. That's exactly what would happen. I'm not going to pretend anything otherwise. All right, but that's all I really wanted to touch on fighting. That's all I really got for today.
That's all I got for the day.
All right. For Nat and Devin, for me and Eric here, we'll see you.
Peace, boys.
Welcome to the basement.